Okay, everyone, we are officially going to get started today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and friends and neighbors, distinguished guests, members of the Willowbrook Legacy Committee. My name is David Pizzuto, and I'm the Interim Director of Communications at the College of Staten Island. It's my pleasure to guide us through today's virtual event to proclaim 2022 as the Year of Willowbrook at the College of Staten Island, and to unveil the collaborative programming effort that will guide us through this year. Throughout the course of the program, we'll hear from many of the panelists you see on your screen, and we want to thank them all for helping us through this immersive experience. And if you're joining us via Zoom, obviously this morning as a member of the press or of the general community, we have established a question and answer portal through our chat feature, and we hope to take questions at the end of our presentation. Willowbrook State School, which opened in 1947 and was closed in 1987, was the largest institution in the world for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Large institutions like Willowbrook were invented in the 19th century, and it was not unique. In the United States, there were more than 300 places like it, starting with the intent to be a model institution offering the best care and therapies. Due to underfunding, understaffing, and overcrowding, it became instead a snake pit. The terrible conditions of life that existed at Willowbrook eventually led to its closure, achieved through press exposure and political and legal advocacy by families of residents. Willowbrook and its closing are generally considered landmark events in the history of disability and disability rights in our country and internationally. In recognition of this past, the College of Staten Island created a Willowbrook Legacy Committee, which through the years has kept the Willowbrook story alive, commemorates the advocacy and the deinstitutionalization movement, and furthers the needs of disabled persons. We will hear more about those triumphs on this day, where we proclaim this important year as the Year of Willowbrook, appropriately on the anniversary of several important dates in the Willowbrook State School's history. It is now my honor to get our proclamation and programming launch started by introducing the College of Staten Island's interim president and a proud supporter of today's efforts, Dr. Timothy G. Lynch. Dr. Lynch.
Thank you, David. Good morning, and thank you again. My name is Timothy Lynch, and I am the interim president of the College of Staten Island. It's my pleasure to welcome you virtually today to our beautiful campus, and especially on this momentous day, a day where we formally established 2022 as the Year of Willowbrook. I'm grateful to be joined today by local elected officials, notably Assemblyman Michael Cusick and Borough President Vito Fasella, by representatives from the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York, most notably Staten Island's own trustee, Michael Arvanitis, and by our own faculty and staff. The Chancellor and I have been in contact, and he sends his apologies for not being able to join us today. He had planned to be here, but for a late-breaking obligation, but he is here in spirit. Although I've been in this position for less than 3 weeks, I can assure you that everyone with whom I have spoken has mentioned the impact that Willowbrook has had on this community, and in many cases, on their lives. This year marks a number of important anniversaries in the history of the Willowbrook State School. 75 years since its establishment, a half century since the groundbreaking expose that led to its closing, and 35 years since that event occurred. But we are not here today to speak about the past, although as a historian, I'm programmed to do just that. Rather, we're here to speak about the future, both the immediate future, where we will have a series of events to commemorate the Year of Willowbrook, and the more distant future, where we will continue to honor the agency, the bravery, the commitment, the dedication, and the empathy of those who worked on behalf of their fellow citizens as they moved from institutionalization to integration. The legacy of Willowbrook is often told and is well known. It is our duty and our obligation to shine a bright light on that story, which is one of the aims of the Year of Willowbrook. We must assure that what occurred on this site will neither be forgotten nor repeated. We must remain committed to advocacy for those who are too often voiceless or forgotten, but who increasingly make up the fabric of this great city and the nation of which we are a part. It is my very great privilege to play a small role in making that noble dream more of an operational one than an aspirational one. Thank you again.
And thank you, Dr. Lynch. We'd now like to introduce a very special guest and a dear colleague whose efforts not only furthered the mission of our college, but the entirety of the City University of New York. Here to bring us greetings from the City University and to share his personal reflections on the year of Willowbrook, it is my great honor to welcome CUNY trustee Michael Arvanites.
Oh, thank you, Dave. Hello, everybody. And just let me thank you and President Lynch and Rob Wallace and all the advocates for putting this together. It's an honor and a privilege to serve on the City University of New York trustees. I have a personal attachment to CSI and to its predecessor, the Willowbrook State School. My brother Stephen lives with autism. Stephen is 3 years older than me, and he was diagnosed right after Willowbrook was exposed. And my parents simply refused to place him in Willowbrook, and as many of you did for your children. Working with other parents and advocates, and the then newly elected Assemblywoman Elizabeth Connolly, whose name I think we're going to hear quite a bit today, they helped create and cultivate Eden 2, a school which I now have the privilege of sitting on the board for that as well. As a child, I remember working with Willowbrook residents as we fought to open the campus up after the exposure. Volunteering for the Special Olympics, which took place on the grounds, playing Mid-Island Little League and Alliance Soccer on the grounds. Willowbrook residents were our biggest fans. They came out to watch the games. Also, the fights that ensued afterwards, going to community board at the ripe age of 7 to fight for group homes for people like my brother Stephen. Rallies to keep IBR open that Assemblyman Cusick was so successful in. My first job after working school was at the Elizabeth Connolly Resource Center working for On Your Mark. And one of the first things I worked on in my career was the transfer of when I started with the State Assembly, the transfer from the state to CUNY for the campus. And what I'm most proud of is what we all accomplished together. Parents, siblings, self-advocates, we turned the narrative. This community and CUNY have taken Willowbrook, a place of literal nightmares, and transformed it literally into a place where dreams can come true. You don't have to look any further than AHRC's Melissa Ruggiero program or today's event in the Year of Willowbrook that everyone here has placed together. And just thank you for allowing me this brief opportunity to thank you on behalf of my family, my brother Stephen, and CUNY at large. We can't forget what happened there, and we have to work to make the lives of those with disabilities even better. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, for your unwavering support and being here this morning. Friends, as Dr. Lynch mentioned and Michael has illustrated, the launch of the Year of Willowbrook and the Willowbrook Mile cannot be done without a collaborative effort, and that includes many members of our community. Few have been more supportive than New York State Assemblyman Michael Cusick, who, through his office, has helped fund the installation of the mile and has served side by side with committee members, regional and national advocates to help tell and honor the memory of Willowbrook so that it can never be forgotten or repeated. Here now to bring us welcoming words via video and to introduce our official proclamation of 2022 as the Year of Willowbrook, please welcome Assemblyman of the State of New York, Michael Cusick.
Hi, I'm Assemblyman Mike Cusick. I'm happy to join you here today virtually as the College of Staten Island kicks off its Year of Willowbrook. It is important as Staten Islanders that we remember the legacy of Willowbrook. This marks the 75th anniversary of the opening of Willowbrook State School and, more importantly, the 35th anniversary of its closure. This Willowbrook is something that many of us will never forget and should never forget, and it should always be part of the history here of Staten Island. Willowbrook opened as an innovative institution and closed in disgrace. Today we honor the advocacy that closed the Willowbrook State School due to the many atrocities that occurred there. And from there we also recognize the advocacy that grew out of that campaign, the advocacy that we now see here in our borough and statewide for people with developmental disabilities. I want to thank the College of Staten Island and the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Councils and the many advocates here on Staten Island for people with developmental disabilities, because this is a hallmark that we should never forget. Willowbrook State School, what happened there, but also it serves as a benchmark for us to strive to provide the services needed for those with developmental disabilities. So thank you for having me here today, and I look forward to the many more ceremonies for the year in Willowbrook, and it's a pleasure to serve the people of Staten Island.
Special thank you to Assemblyman Cusick, and we'd like to show you all what Assemblyman Cusick has shared with us this morning, this official proclamation that we will proudly display on our campus that you will see on your screen momentarily. I'd like to call on one of the driving forces of our Willowbrook Legacy Committee, one who's helped us in our development to help read it all to us. College of Staten Island Vice President Rob Wallace. Rob, would you please do the honors?
Thank you, David. A proclamation from the Assembly of the State of New York in honor of the Willowbrook Mile during the newly proclaimed Year of Willowbrook. Whereas the College of Staten Island, CUNY, currently occupies the site of the former Willowbrook State School, and whereas this former Willowbrook State School was the world's largest institution to house persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and whereas the College of Staten Island, CUNY, and the Willowbrook Legacy Committee have declared 2022 as the Year of Willowbrook in recognition of the 75th anniversary of the opening of the Willowbrook State School, the 50th anniversary of the broadcast of Willowbrook, The Last Disgrace, and the 35th anniversary of Willowbrook's closing. And whereas the College of Staten Island, CUNY, and the Willowbrook Legacy Committee will open the Willowbrook Mile, an interpretive, accessible walking trail on its main campus in 2022, in collaboration with the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council, the Institution for Basic Research, and the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities. And whereas together we commemorate the evolution of the Willowbrook State School from model institution to disgrace, honor the advocacy that led to its closure, recognize the extraordinary advancements made in ensuring the rights of persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities through actions like the 1975 Willowbrook consent judgment, and engage the ongoing crusade for education and memorialization surrounding those affected by Willowbrook and by other institutions like it. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that this legislator pauses in his deliberations to recognize 2022 to be the Year of Willowbrook. Dated January 18th, 2022, the Honorable Michael J. Cusick.
Terrific. Once again, we want to thank Assemblyman Cusick for his unwavering support and his steadfast commitment to the project and all of our programming this year, and Rob Wallace, whose many efforts have led us to this. The Year of Willowbrook has very special significance for all of us here, and that's because many of us have become familiar with the history of Willowbrook and its relevance in the social justice movement for the disabled. But that history must never be forgotten, and it never will, thanks to the efforts of many who continue to tell the story of Willowbrook and who have made education and advocacy surrounding Willowbrook standard fare in their lives. It's my great pleasure to now introduce members of the Willowbrook Legacy Committee who will offer us words on the significance of the Willowbrook State School and the year ahead, beginning with committee co-chair, Catherine Lavender. Catherine.
Thank you, David. Hello, I'm Catherine Lavender, a professor of history at the college. One of my areas of specialization is public history, and this is what I bring to the Willowbrook Project. As a public historian, it's my job to ensure that the Willowbrook history that is told belongs to the people whose history it is, the residents, the contemporary IDD community, the advocates and self-advocates, and all the others in our community who have lived Willowbrook's story. As co-chair with Nora Santiago of the Willowbrook Committee, I provide support to the project and its participants in the effort to make that story accessible, inclusive, meaningful, and useful to the interests and needs of the Willowbrook community, to build a history that helps us to secure a better future. When I came to the college as a faculty member shortly after CSI moved onto the former Willowbrook site in the mid-1990s, I knew almost nothing about Willowbrook's history, but I had grown up in the shadow of a sister institution, the Colorado State Home and Training School, once called the Colorado State Home for Mental Defectives, but best known as Ridge Home. So when I learned that CSI was now on the site of a similar and even larger institution, the largest in the world, I immediately wanted to know more. One of the first people I met at CSI was Dr. David Good from the sociology department, who has been the great torchbearer at the college for recognizing our connection to that Willowbrook legacy. In the decades since CSI came to Willowbrook, despite discouragement from successive CSI leaders, David has kept that torch lit. And at last, in the 2000s, former CSI President William Fritz and the former Vice President for External Affairs, Ken Awama, finally listened to David and embraced the Willowbrook legacy. Ken Awama asked me to join the committee as a public historian, and I've been involved ever since. At the same time David was pushing the college to recognize its connections to Willowbrook, Diane Buglioli was building the wider foundation for the Willowbrook Legacy Project on the New York State side, and her efforts and David's over decades have led us to this moment. It is not an exaggeration to say that there would be no Willowbrook legacy without Diane and David, and they form the heart of our committee. Our team represents the rich collaboration among the partners in this project, the Institute for Basic Research, the New York State Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council, and the College of Staten Island. In addition, we depend on the generous participation of IDD and disability advocates, self-advocates, parent advocates, and community advocates, whose perspectives on the past, present, and future are essential to our work. This is work that cannot be done alone. It takes many minds and hearts and hands, and the Willowbrook Legacy Project has been blessed with a lot of support. There are far too many for me to thank here, but I do want to recognize just a few of the long-term supporters of the cause, including Hal Kennedy, Linda Call, Dr. Bill Bronston, Dr. Michael Wilkins, Tony Gallego, Mark Lewenthal, Kim Williams, Jasmine Cardona, and VP Rob Wallace. And finally, I want to acknowledge some who have proved essential to our efforts in the recent years, including Dr. Nelly Tornacchi, Jose Rivera, and of course, Dr. David Good, all of whom serve on our working group. And now I'm proud to turn this over to some of our other Willowbrook Legacy team members, starting with Diane Buglioli.
Catherine, thank you for those kind words. Good morning, everyone. My name is Diane Buglioli. I am co-founder and presently a board member of A Very Special Place Incorporated, an agency that provides services to people with developmental disabilities. In the 1980s, I was the chairperson of the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council, the island's primary advocacy and provider voice. In 2004, I was one of the initiators of the Willowbrook Property Planning Committee of that council. The committee was formulated due to the possibility of the remaining acreage of the former state school being used for other than disability-related resources. So the Willowbrook Property Planning Committee began investigating the suitability of the property for structures, as well as surveying people and agencies to identify the specific resources needed to address the needs of Staten Islanders with disabilities. After years of input from landscape architects, attorneys, and advocates, it was clear that the majority of the remaining properties was not buildable and that funding for new services would not be forthcoming. After much discussion, it was decided that the most important aspect of our mission was to transform the remaining properties into something it had never been, something that would be productive, inclusive, progressive, collaborative, and focused on never allowing Willowbrook to happen again. The committee began to develop a concept of an interactive educational walking trail with stations to give people an understanding of the dehumanizing process of institutionalization, as well as a timeline of the various uses of the property historically. The various signage and stations would deeply engage the visitor in how it happened and how it was eventually closed, basically remembering the past to protect the future. When the Willowbrook Property Committee approached the college around 2010, the college opened its arms and faculty to joining the mission, and the Willowbrook Property Planning Committee involved into a collaborative committee called the Willowbrook Legacy Committee. The committee enjoins the college, the Disability Council, IBR, and OPWDD. but indeed it was the college embracing the history of its property that solidified the mission, and the Willowbrook Mile will happen because of their coordination and guidance in this community partnership. My passion for preserving the Willowbrook legacy emanated from my experiences from 1969 to 1980 when I was employed at Willowbrook State School. I personally experienced the powerfully negative impact of institutionalization on the infants, toddlers, and adults with whom I worked. Let me share with you my earliest recollection from my experiences, my first day at work. That day was May 29th, 1969. I was given this key, which I think I can, if you can see it. This is a, can you see it? There it is. It's a steel key, very heavy. This is the largest key I'd ever seen in my life. I was told to go to my building, and I was pretty excited. I was 19. It was my first full-time job. And I walked up to the building, and the first door I had to open was this heavy steel door. And I put this key in, and I turned the door, and I opened it. I walked a couple of steps, and there was another steel door. And I put the key in that, and I opened it. I walked into a building that was pretty drab. It had marble, heavy, dark colored marble floors and monochromatic walls, no pictures at all, not a sense that anyone lived here. And I was sent down to the hallway, and I walked down this long drab hallway, and I came to a third door. This door was solid and had a small window at the top that had like wire in it. You couldn't see through it. And it was at that point, as a 19-year-old standing there, I've never had any experience with people with disabilities. And I thought to myself, what have I gotten myself into? I had a moment of, I paused and I thought, who has to be locked behind these doors? I've gone through three steel doors. Well, at 19, you just say, well, I'm here, I'm going to do it. So I just put the key in the lock, turned it, and pushed this very, very heavy door open. And when I got to the other side, waiting on the other side for me, were 40 toddlers. Some of them came up to me, pulled at my pants, tugged at my pants, and asked me my name. Others were sitting on mats on the floor with a very vacant look in their eyes. Some were sitting at tables with nothing in front of them to do. And I thought to myself, why in God's name are these children locked behind three steel doors? May 29th, 1969, and now it's January 18th, 2022, and I still get that feeling in the pit of my stomach every time I advocate for people with developmental disabilities, thinking about those toddlers behind that door and that surreal moment that I experienced. So those toddlers abducted me to walk a different path that I had ever intended. I became committed to not only Willowbrook's closing, but also to ensure that the Willowbrook property in the form of the Willowbrook Mile would be used to ensure that it would never reopen in the form of buildings or philosophically as an acceptable form of intervention for any human being who simply needed assistance. I co-founded a very special place in 1974. And when we opened our first programs in 1980, 50% of all of those receiving services from us were residents or former residents of Willowbrook State School. To this day, I honor them for their ability to have become humane individuals despite the inhuman environment in which they were raised. When I look in their eyes, I still see those toddlers, and I know that the Willowbrook legacy must be shared so that future generations have the information and therefore the opportunity to heed those lessons. Doing the right thing requires sustained effort in a form of righteous advocacy. I hosted the CTV 10-part series Willowbrook Revisited, where you can meet many of the activists responsible for the Willowbrook achievements. It is here sporadically now, but can be seen on the Willowbrook section of the college website, as well as YouTube. At this time, let me introduce to you a powerful advocate who has consistently walked that righteous path, Laura Kennedy.
Thank you, Diane, for those powerful, powerful remarks. Good morning, everyone. When my daughter Julia was born in 1982 with a developmental delay, thanks to the plaintiffs of the Willowbrook lawsuit and the extraordinary efforts by many advocacy groups during the 1970s, she was able to receive infant stimulation and later preschool and school-age special education. Had she been born 10 years earlier, none of those services were readily available. The Willowbrook consent judgment in 1975 set the course for community inclusion, education, and support services in New York and beyond. It was years later, as a board member of AHRC New York City, a chapter of the ARC New York, and a plaintiff in the lawsuit, that my husband Hal and I learned how significant the Willowbrook judgment was in changing the world for people like my daughter. I'm privileged to know many of the parents who filed that lawsuit on behalf of their children. They believed their children could learn and deserved an appropriate education and care. They demonstrated strength, tenacity, and the determination that grassroots advocacy can really make a difference. As a member of the disability community, I'm so pleased to be associated with the College of Staten Island and the good work that it has done for those with disabilities. Long before our planning committee kicked this year off as the Year of Willowbrook, CSI developed curricula that address disabilities and special education and partnered with IBR. Since moving to this campus, the original home of the Willowbrook State School, it has held an annual Willowbrook lecture. It houses the Willowbrook Archives collection in its library. For over a decade, it has partnered with AHRC New York City in offering the Melissa Riggio Higher Education Program that offers students with disabilities an opportunity to engage in college studies and college life. This innovative program exists on several CUNY campuses today. CSI has been a partner and a collaborator with the disability community and an instrumental force in improving the lives of people with IDD. This year of celebration acknowledges the very best of all of us, the disability community, the college, and the community at large. Working together to honor and remember this important history ensures that people with developmental disabilities have the education and resources they need to be valued members of their community. More work needs to be done. We're not there yet, but we will be. So thank you all for attending this very special event, and we look forward to seeing you during the year of programming ahead of Willowbrook 2022. Thank you. And I now introduce Timothy Smolka to give his remarks.
Hello, everyone. My name is Timothy Smolka. I am 34 years old and have been involved with the Willowbrook Mile committee since its inception. As a wheelchair user, I can help the committee make sure that our project is universally accessible and includes self-advocates. I do not have a personal connection to the Willowbrook State School. However, I can relate to its story due to the fact that I currently live in my own independent apartment on Staten Island. If it wasn't for the Willowbrook closure and the parents, caregivers, and others who strive for better on behalf of persons with disabilities, I would not be in the position I am today. I hope future generations of advocates can continue to strive for better on behalf and hope that the Willowbrook story does not fall to the wayside. And we continue to strive for better. Thank you. And now I turn it over to Eric Goldberg for his remarks.
Thank you, Timothy. Very powerful, very emotional, and good going. Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Goldberg. I am a self-advocate and a co-chair of the Willowbrook Legacy Committee of the SIDDC Developmental Disabilities Council. I also serve on the collaborative SIDDC CSI committee, developing the Willowbrook Mile I am also a graduate of the Melissa Riggio program, as well as a GED graduate from the College of Staten Island Continuing Ed program. I have a passion for this project because, I emphasize because, I never want Willowbrook to happen again and want to be part of ensuring that doesn't happen again. Thank you. I now pass it over to Nora with some final remarks. Nora Santiago with some final remarks. Nora?
Thank you, Eric. My name is Nora Santiago. I'm an urban policy analyst at the College of Staten Island and the co-chair of the Willowbrook Committee with Catherine. The Willowbrook Legacy Committee aims to preserve the history of this place and cement its memory into the college's legacy. My involvement with the Willowbrook project started a long time ago, around 2013, with the Mile. I was asked to make a map of the Willowbrook Mile under Vice President Michael Kress and Economic Development Director Sandy Sanchez. The idea was to use some of the existing fitness paths on campus and connect them with the other properties on the state side. I use architectural drawings created by the Staten Island Developmental Disability Council's Willowbrook Property Planning Committee and drawings of our own fitness paths. The Willowbrook Mile goal is symbolically to reconnect those lands that were formerly known as the Willowbrook State School. My involvement with the Mile and the annual lectures grew over the years since planning for the groundbreaking in 2016. Willowbrook Mile became a year-round project and was added to my portfolio, supported by the administration of President Fritz and Vice President Ken Iwama. Many projects came to a halt during COVID, but not this one. Our group began to meet weekly in order to bring this project to the next level. In the last almost 2 years, we worked on finalizing the text for each sign, created a brochure for our visitors, created a webpage with information about Willowbrook, and interviewed parents whose children were residents of Willowbrook. And we planned last year's lecture. As we were planning for the date of the opening of the Mile, the idea of the Year of Willowbrook was born. September 17th, 2022 will mark the 35th anniversary of closing Willowbrook State School. And as you heard from our previous speakers, this year has other significant anniversaries, including the 75th anniversary of the opening of Willowbrook and the 50th anniversary of Geraldo's expose. Now, I would like to share a short video about what is in place for the Year of Willowbrook. After the video, you will have a chance to ask questions for any of our members of the Willowbrook Legacy Committee. Thank you.
The Willowbrook Legacy Committee, comprised of CSI faculty and staff, and representatives of our community partner organizations like the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council, the Institute for Basic Research, and the Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, and advocates and self-advocates from the IDDD community, made a commitment to make 2022 the Year of Willowbrook. Kicking off with a press conference and public event in January, the Year of Willowbrook is planned around monthly signature events that lead up to the opening of the Willowbrook Mile in September. Throughout the year, there will be a number of other events facilitated by the Willowbrook Legacy Committee involving the CSI campus community and our community partners, advocates, and self-advocates that will examine the Willowbrook legacy. We are committed together to remember Willowbrook's past in order to secure a future in which all persons are ensured of their essential rights and dignity. In February, we will mark the 50th anniversary of the national broadcast of Willowbrook, The Last Great Disgrace, the ABC television expose by Geraldo Rivera. We will show the footage, and Geraldo will be with us to be interviewed and to answer questions. In March, we will share the 2021 Willowbrook Memorial Lecture, titled Avoiding the Next Willowbrook, Lessons Learned About Activism from Parents. This engaging conversation between Diane Buglioli and a community of parents of former Willowbrook residents tells the story of their activism and advocacy. It looks at the struggle that led to the closure of Willowbrook and the continuing fight to ensure the health and safety of their children in the system that followed. On April 6th, we will host the 2022 annual Willowbrook Memorial Lecture, the 29th in the series created by Dr. David Good in the 1990s. In the past 40 years, the Willowbrook Lectures have shared the story of Willowbrook, featuring many important figures from the institution's history, as well as focusing on contemporary concerns in the intellectually and developmentally disabled community. The 2022 Willowbrook Memorial Lecture will feature Ronnie Cohn, who was the independent evaluator for the Willowbrook class, charged with ensuring that former Willowbrook residents were protected after the closure of Willowbrook. Cohn will lead a panel discussion titled Beyond Willowbrook, featuring other figures who have been instrumental in overseeing the care and conditions for the Willowbrook class members. This event will examine what happened after Willowbrook closed and what the future holds for persons with developmental disabilities and their families. In May, we will revisit an important commemorative event held at the college in 2000, recognizing the 25th anniversary of the Willowbrook consent judgment that was a landmark in the fight to close Willowbrook and to secure civil and human rights for all disabled persons. Along with historical footage of the meeting not seen since 2000, this event will include a panel discussion and audience questions. Throughout June and July, we will host a number of film screenings with live discussions of documentaries and feature films that focus on Willowbrook. These will include Russell Cohen's powerful short docudrama Willowbrook from 2012, Unforgotten, 25 Years After Willowbrook from 1996, and the recent film Forget Me Not from 2020. September will mark the historic event of the opening of the Willowbrook Mile, located on the CSI campus and on the Institute for Basic Research campus. COVID-19 permitting, this will be a public in-person event at the college. The Willowbrook Mile is a 10-station interpretive trail on campus grounds that takes visitors through the history, advocacy, and deinstitutionalization movement. As designed by Yorma Losi, each landscape station includes interpretive historical signs and benches and space for reflection. Underwriting for the project has been provided by State Assemblyman Michael Cusick, as well as the college and its community partners and private donors. Spurred by a conviction that nothing like the Willowbrook story should ever happen again, the Willowbrook Mile Committee has dedicated itself to ensure that the mile is inclusive, progressive, productive, creative, collaborative, sustainably designed, and both philosophically and physically universally accessible to people of all diverse abilities and needs. This unique project aims to preserve the site's history and create a visionary presence that commemorates the continuing struggle for social justice for all people of all abilities.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, that was a very moving and outstanding presentation. And I want to personally thank our presenters who did an amazing job illustrating the significance of the Year of Willowbrook and the installation of the Willowbrook Mile. Indeed, your stories, your daily work to bring the Willowbrook story and the advocacy that followed to life is why we are here today. And it is why this is only the beginning of our reflection and journey through the Year of Willowbrook. Before we open it up for questions for our presenters, we do want to welcome in some special greetings this morning. We're thrilled to welcome in live this morning Staten Island Borough President Vito Fasella, who's taken in our ceremony and would like to lend us a few words. Mr. Fasella? I don't know if Borough President Fasella's mic is working at this point, but we do know that also joining us today is New York City Council member David Carr. He too would like to share a few words with us all, and we're honored he will share with us today. Mr. Carr?
Good morning. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to some words from me. You know, I'm not here to accept any accolades, but really to offer them. But let me start by saying, as the new Mid-Island Council representative, the representative whose district includes the campus of the College of Staten Island and what is the former Willowbrook State School, I feel a special duty to be an advocate for both the college and for issues affecting the developmentally disabled community. I think that events like this and dedicating this year as the year of Willowbrook is incredibly important and adds intentionality for everything that we're going to be doing this year on these issues, and is certainly a great reminder for me as I embark on my first year in office to be working collaboratively with all of you, but also to be reminding folks here on Staten Island and beyond of the important lessons of Willowbrook, particularly those who are in our younger generations who have no particular memory of what the Willowbrook State School was. I can speak from experience. I was born the year the Willowbrook State School closed. I'm 35 this year too. And were it not for the really informative experiences I had as a member of staffs of elected officials, where I was able to attend meetings of the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council and hear stories like the one Diane talked about earlier on the Zoom, and hearing from other parents and providers over the years, I may not have had the sterling education I got from advocates. And so that's something I want to be a part of with all of you in bringing the message and lessons of Willowbrook to all Staten Islanders who may not be aware of its unfortunate legacy, but also the fortunate side of its legacy, which is that it really turned around the way that in this state engage and help the developmentally disabled community. And I just want to say again, I look forward to working with all of you over the course of the next 2 years, and I applaud everything you're doing. And then I also wanted to say great work, as always, by my colleague in the Mid-Island, Assemblyman Cusick. I know he feels that special duty to this site as much as anyone does, and I know that it's why he's been such a consistent advocate over the years. And so wonderful job, Assemblyman Cusick. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Carr. It's a pleasure to have you here and a pleasure to have you on board with this effort throughout the year. Now I do want to turn it over to Borough President Vito Fasella, who joins us as well and would like to share a few words with us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you all for this presentation and for the powerful remarks that have been offered today. I want to particularly highlight Timothy Smoka and Eric Goldberg for their powerful presentation. As I was reading early, right after Timothy spoke, that Timothy, you rock. So you certainly did. Appreciate it. And I think it's just an overarching view of how we sort of should look at this. And I have some prepared remarks, but my view, I read this recently in preparation for this, was every person has a profound need for dignity and respect. They're necessary requirements for fulfilling life. Without them, society cannot flourish, because as a people, we cannot sustain progress if some are left behind. And that to me is the overarching view of why today and this year is so significant. I applaud the manifest head-on efforts taken by the College of Staten Island and the Willowbrook Legacy Committee in its work to continue to grapple with the legacy of the former Willowbrook State School for the developmentally disabled. The fact that this commemoration is being held at CSI is proof that as a community, we can succeed in making something positive come out of tragedy. As this beautiful educational campus has blossomed on the very site of the former school. However, society has not succeeded in fully addressing the issue of caring for the developmentally disabled with the dignity and compassion they deserve. There's still more work to do, and we must have the resolve to do so. I further applaud CSI for recognizing its legacy in this way and for implementing appropriate remedial initiatives, such as leading the way in the opening of the doors of higher education to developmentally disabled students at the college. I understand there are scores of students in the developmentally disabled community who have graduated from the college and are enrolled today, and what better testimony is there that your efforts have succeeded. Establishing the Willowbrook Mile is a way of keeping the issue front and center on the campus, reminding us all to remain vigilant and in pursuit of progress on this important issue as we move forward. I commend CSI and the Willowbrook Legacy Committee for preparing a diverse program of events and discussions this year, of all which will help to ensure that the tragedy of Willowbrook won't be swept away under the rug of history, that will be remembered as a catalyst for change in providing services to the developmentally disabled community and their families with the care, expertise, and dignity. I know that my colleague, Michael and friend, Michael Cusick, is a leading voice on this issue. And I was happy to hear from the new councilman, David Carr, who is an equally strong and compelling voice of helping our developmentally disabled residents. And I will continue to work with Mike, David, and anybody else, of course, the committee, in any way that I can help contribute to their efforts. As a lifelong Staten Islander, there are many things that we can be proud of here. I don't think there's a more profound way that we can be proud than to what many on this call and the people and their families have had in changing from what was once a tragedy.
So thank you, Borough President Fasella. Needless to say, our committee and our institution is excited to have, have your leadership join us along with Councilmember Carr and Assemblyman Cusick. Thank you again for everyone who's lent us words today. And remember all that this is just the first in a long line of events throughout the year. And the next one is the one you'll be seeing on your screen as a promotional now. On Wednesday, February 16th at 6 p.m., we will present Willowbrook, The Last Great Disgrace, a 50th anniversary reflection of Geraldo Rivera's explosive expose. The event will feature Geraldo introducing the video and engaging with us, and we hope you'll join us by pre-registering for that event coming up in just a few weeks' time. This officially concludes our programmed event, leaving open the chance for members to ask questions. I know we do have a couple. One question came in, and I'll throw it to either Catherine or Nora potentially, is folks want to know how they can be involved in some of the programming, our team with the college or teaming with the college in that capacity. Is there a way our community members can take part in some of this programming?
Well, absolutely. I mean, everyone is welcome to attend. We've created an Eventbrite group. So if you registered for this, you had the opportunity to follow that group. It means that you'll then be notified of all of the events that will be coming. And also we'll be putting them up on CSI Today as we develop them. So there will be many, many opportunities throughout the year. In addition to the ones you've heard about today, there are many events that are being planned by our partners and by faculty and staff at the college and different groups that want to share information. So there'll be a lot of opportunities for that. We also are very eager to hear from people who have a connection to Willowbrook, to hear your stories and to be able to include them in the larger story of Willowbrook. And so if you'd like to get in touch with us through the email address, maybe David, you could put this in the chat, willowbrook@csi.cuny.edu, we can send you a form you can fill out with your information and a brief version of your testimony, and then we can reach you and include you in the oral history and the ongoing developing story of the Willowbrook State School and its legacy. Thirdly, we're always interested in people that would like to partner with us and do events with us or partner with us in developing future programs. So please do reach out to us at that Willowbrook address. We have a fundraising page as well. We're fundraising to make the mile, once it's open, sustainable beyond its original, the funding, which covers the creation of it. We want to make sure that it will be open and accessible and at its best for many years to come. And I think David can put that link in. It's through the site GiveGab. There also are opportunities for larger giving if you want to look on that, and you could contact our Vice President for Development, Kim Williams, who has also been very active in this project. Nora, am I leaving something else out?
I think you got it all.
Okay, I hope so. I also want to make a really quick correction. I made an error in the script that became that video. And when I said that the Willowbrook Mile is on the CSI campus and the IBR campus, I failed to include that it's also on the OPWDD campus on the Elizabeth Connolly Center, somebody whose name should be said many, many times. We did have a slide of her in the video over with the voiceover to ensure that people's rights are respected and that people get the services that they need because it's so associated with her that beautiful picture of her interacting with a resident. So I just wanted to make that quick correction. We'll update it before the video goes beyond this meeting. But you know, you find things out sometimes, you realize them at 10:30 and the event goes live at 11. So I hope you'll forgive us for that. Thanks.
We do have a follow-up question from Hosu Kim, but we do want to let Laura chime in as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to also say I stumbled over my remarks and I wanted to mention the extensive Willowbrook archives that is housed at the library, and it's growing and it'll continue to grow with many other groups contributing to the work of the archivist James Kaiser and the library staff, where this walking tour will begin. We have a rich history and it needs to be available to researchers and students and all those that will write the books of the future, but all those who are going to build the future for people with disabilities. So thanks to the college and James and the library staff to house this wonderful collection.
Thank you so much, Laura. And Hosu has a question, and it's part of another question that was asked a little earlier as well, is when the Willowbrook Mile officially opens to the public, will the college allow groups to access it, such as classrooms? Will there be guided tours that come with it? And also, will the mile have a cost attached to view it?
Yes, I can answer that. So yes, we welcome anyone to come, any groups. And we actually already had in the past high schools visiting from Brooklyn. They wanted to know the history. So again, just contact us through the Willowbrook email. You can also look up some information about what you will find and how to reserve parking space if you're coming with the larger group. That's all available on our website. I will put the link up in a few minutes. And we would like you to share this information with your friends and relatives, and we would love everyone to come and visit the mile and learn about the history of this place. There's gonna be no cost to visit the mile. Did I forget something?
No, I think, and also a person can simply walk the mile. It's self-guided, and you don't need to have a guide to show you the mile. You just really need the basic map of the mile. But we also do want to design some tours going forward once it opens in September, on September 17th, and that will be another big event, and hopefully that will be a big event in person. So we'll all pray for that.
Yeah, we're intending that in the next phase of the mile, that we'll be able to set up a kiosk within the archives, within the library, so that people will be able to virtually visit the mile as well. And that's something that we'll be working on for the future. Right now, it's to get the original stations out there so people can go there. I mean, you could walk it now, you'll see signage there, but this wonderful passageway that's been designed by Yormer it will be a different type of experience than what we have there now. So it's very exciting. And please get out there and walk this mile when the spring comes. Yeah.
Yes, so we will have a website that we'll put in the chat, as well as the giving site, attached to that, which is accessible through our website as well. But barring no other questions, and we'll certainly entertain them via email as well. We want to thank everyone for joining us today, Dr. Lynch, Mr. Arvanites, obviously our esteemed council member, David Carr, Borough President Vito Fasella, Assemblyman Mike Cusick, and of course, all the members of the Willowbrook Legacy Committee. We could not do this without you. We would not be here without you. We're looking so forward to some of the programming that is still to come, and we ask that everybody please stay connected to our website, to our Eventbrite page, to pre-register for some of these exciting events. We look forward to seeing you. We look forward to your input, and we look forward to the continuing collaboration that we've set forth. If anybody from the audience wants to share their connection to Willowbrook, some of the members of our team will stay on, and we'll be happy to chat. Otherwise, this does conclude our ceremony. Farewell, everyone. Thank you for being a part of this, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you again.
Thank you. There's much work to be done, as I said earlier. This is the
Absolutely.
beginning.
Well, and for one thing, we've talked about the possibility of a museum in the future,
Yes.
a Willowbrook
Yeah.
museum in the future.
Yeah,
So there are
and-
many, many things.
And we're reminded too of a question that came in that unfortunately we didn't get to, but public transport, getting to campus in that way.
It's much easier than it has been in the past. We're a kind of hub now.
Actually, with the number 3 transportation destination on Staten Island is the campus.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Really?
if I'm not mistaken, Catherine, our website will have directions on how to access campus as well as parking and that sort of thing as well.
Yes, there's a quite
Yeah.
extensive section about accessibility issues and access, just more general access. So people can find that information on the website.
And the S93 bus actually terminates at the very start of the Willowbrook Mile.
Yep.
Good point. Yeah, absolutely.
So there were so many things in the chat about people's connections, and unfortunately it was going by. I can't really, but it's amazing to see how many people are connected. And every place I go on Staten Island, I meet people. As they hear about this project, I meet people who have connections, who have a family member or a cousin, a distant cousin even, or who worked here at some point as a young person, or who worked in the different organizations, as Michael told us about the organizations that then came in after the closure. So there are many, many connections in this community, and we want to capture those and make sure that those stories are not forgotten.
And I think to the students who are involved in learning more about the Willowbrook story and the advocacy that took place, and much was going on in the 60s and 70s, when students have a passion about health or the environment, that if they look to see how effective the parents during the Willowbrook story were, who were committed to getting something done and working with government, so much of this students can bring to life in passions they have and lessons learned. So everyone benefits by learning about the Willowbrook story, whether you're a physician, a teacher, a lawyer, a businessman. It's really the way of the future. And let's remember, you could be born with a disability, acquire it by accident, come back from war with it, or age as we are now. What we learn from Willowbrook and learn about disabilities is really doing something for all of us. And that's why university studies is so important in this area. And you're here to the College of Staten Island and to CUNY.
Thank you.
Well, and again, on behalf of the college, we could never do this work without our partners. Everything starts with OPWDD and the Staten Island Developmental Disabilities Council and Diane's work. That's really where all of this grows out of. So it is such a testament to how important it is that the community that surrounds a college be integrated, that these two things be tied together, because otherwise we would not be able to do any of this work. So thank you to our partners.
Hi, it's Eric. I just wanted to piggyback from what Laura was saying. I totally agree. And I think it should, for college students, high school students that are going into college, I think there should be a part of whether in any class that you learn about Willowbrook, and you learn about what we are doing as a Willowbrook community, and as advocates, what we are doing and what Diane did and what David did and what we all are still doing. I think that should be a mandated, not a mandated, but a suggested course, and for those of you who are interested, want to learn about Willowbrook, once the whole thing is done in September, please come out, see it. It's open to anybody. And we would like people of all of Staten Island to come out and see it, because it's very memorable and very tearing up, very memorable and very moving. And I myself have a disability, and I, it's very memorable to me as well and moving. So thank you. Just wanted to add that.
Yep. Thank you, Eric.
Very well stated, Eric. And I think one of the things and the common theme that we've seen in the chat as well is thanking this group on what it is doing. But indeed, it's thanking all of you for taking part in events like this and for keeping events like these at the forefront and continuing the discussion and taking it with you in your circles is what fuels this committee and what allows us to do the work that they are doing. So I would like to wrap up here, if that's okay. Remember that this, the transcript and the video will be available on Willowbrook's YouTube page, so it can be revisited, it can be shared, and we look forward to putting that up, a little bit later on this afternoon for everybody to see. Until then, we've included some links on how to pre-register for our next event, but we look forward to seeing you all. Please visit us on the web, reach out to willowbrook@csi.cuny.edu. We welcome your thoughts. We welcome your inclusion into some of these events, and we look forward to hearing from all of you soon enough. On behalf of everyone here, I want to thank you for your participation, and we'll see you all very soon.